Okay, so today we're going deep on this Tim Omotosho trial.
Right.
And specifically, we're looking at the closing arguments and some pretty interesting things that happen. So Advocate Caesar is presenting the closing arguments for the state,
Hmm.
trying to convince the judge that Omotosho is guilty.
Right. And it's interesting because closing arguments are meant to be like the climax
Yeah.
of a trial.
Right.
It's where both sides present their strongest case and try to really persuade the judge or the
Yeah.
jury if there is one.
Absolutely. It's their last chance to make an impact and try and win their case.
Exactly.
So in this case, we see that the judge actually interrupts Advocate Caesar
Uh-huh.
at one point and questions him on something pretty important.
Yeah, he brings up the fact that Caesar is referencing witness testimonies,
Right.
but Omotoso was never actually cross-examined on those.
Which is kind of a big deal, right?
It is a big deal because
Mm.
cross-examination, it's a fundamental principle. In our legal system, both sides have the right to question
Yeah.
witnesses, to test their credibility, to challenge their statements.
It's how you get to the truth, right?
Exactly. And so
Yeah.
for the judge to point this out, it definitely raises some eyebrows.
Yeah.
Like, why wasn't this done?
And Advocate Caesar's reasoning was that,
Well,
he said that Omotosho would have likely just denied it
right.
if they asked him about it directly.
Which is kind of a strange justification, because even if you assume
Yeah.
someone's going to deny something,
Right.
you still have to give them the opportunity
To respond.
to respond, to defend themselves.
Right, because otherwise it almost seems like you're prejudging them.
Exactly. It undermines the whole idea of due process
Yeah.
and a fair trial.
And what makes it even weirder is that the state had 9 days
I know.
to cross-examine Omotosho. They only used 3.
And barely touched on the other two accused.
Yes, like what was the strategy there?
Right. Either they were supremely confident in their existing evidence,
Why?
or it was a major miscalculation.
And it's interesting that even the reporter covering the trial
Yeah.
picked up on this and said, this whole thing isn't looking too good.
It definitely raises questions about the state's case.
Yeah. Could this potentially impact the judge's decision in the end?
Well, it's hard to say, but public perception is important,
Right.
This whole situation could cast some doubt
On their case.
on the thoroughness of the state's case.
And to add to this whole drama, there were also allegations of perjury
Oh, yeah.
against state prosecutors.
Perjury, that's a serious accusation, lying under oath.
Yeah.
It can really damage the integrity of the entire legal process.
So how did Advocate Caesar address this?
Well, interestingly enough, he didn't really address it directly.
Really?
He just kind of doubled down on his confidence in the strength of their evidence.
He's basically saying, trust me, we've got this.
Yeah, pretty much.
So now it all comes down to the judge
Exactly.
to weigh the evidence and make the final decision.
And that's a huge responsibility. They have to look at everything carefully,
Right.
consider the credibility of everyone involved, and then decide whether the state has truly met that burden of proof.
This whole trial has been pretty wild. So many twists and turns.
Definitely keeps you on the edge of your seat.
So with all this going on in the closing arguments, what do you think this means for the final verdict?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It really is. Will this courtroom clash sway the judge's decision?
I guess we'll just have to wait and see.
We'll be keeping a close eye on this one, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
This has been another deep dive. Thanks for joining us.